and the room is filling up, so we are ready to go.
All right, thank you. Then I'll share the screen. Please let me know when you do see it.
Working pretty fine, thank you. So hello everybody from Berlin. We are here today sharing with us our ongoing work on the integration of the human experience to our conversational interfaces. We are Paulo and Carmen from FlixBus. For those that they are not familiar with the brand, FlixBus is a mobility provided launched in Germany in 2013, and we are offering sustainable, green, and comfortable travel across Europe and as well the United States. FlixBus has currently more than 350,000 daily connections in more than 2,000 destinations, and I think that we are operating currently in over 35 countries. On my side, as I said at the beginning, I'm Carmen Martínez. I'm working as a conversational UX expert at C3PO. At the team, we are working in FlixMobility, and I'm working in different tasks related with the automation of customer service with conversational AI. Currently, I'm also very much involved in the onboarding of new colleagues on our program dedicated to diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech. And my background is in sociolinguistics. I am a doctor of conversation analysis, and quite recently I have published Conversar en Español, a framework of Spanish conversation in human-to-human interactions here in Berlin in the publishing house Peter Lang. And now I'm very happy to introduce you to Paulo.
Thank you, Carmen. So yes, I'm Paulo Azevedo. I am a software solutions architect in the same team as Carmen. In the last, better part of a decade, I've had different jobs in tech, but all of them focusing on human-machine interfaces. And I'm happy to have the opportunity at this particular job to employ machine learning to do things like natural language understanding, natural language generation, and the associated things in order to build conversational interfaces. In general, I'm a tinkerer, so if you put a system in front of me, I will try to modify it, I will try to see if it works under different constraints, and this situation here is of course no different. In any case, so what we're going to cover today are a few different things. So we're going to talk a little bit about the different telephony services at Flix. Then we're going to present 3 pillars that we see as important for the successful development of conversational UI products. And then we'll have a small summary of those 3 pillars at the end. So automated telephony services at Flix. So as Carmen said, we're part of a team called C3PO. And for those that have watched Star Wars Episode 4, you might understand. So the purpose of our team is to bridge the gap between different human stakeholders. So our team has been involved in multiple initiatives. We have been involved in allowing the sale of tickets on platforms such as Google Assistant and Alexa. We have also been involved in bridging the language gap between bus drivers and our traffic control. But of course, the largest use case is customer service in terms of volume and also in terms of user impact. Therefore, we're going to be focusing mostly on customer service today. And for that, I would invite Carmen to talk a little bit about the different service tiers that we have.
Yes, so for the telephony services that we are currently supporting, for the case of FlixBus, a company that builds its global vision on the basis of the understanding of the peculiarities of our many local markets, for us is only natural to have a multilingual approach to customer service. So for FlixBus, as you can see in the slide, we have 2 types of hotlines. The first one is the semi-automated one, as you can see from the picture showing the human agent. And we have another group of hotlines that they are fully automated. For the lines that they are semi-automated, we are supporting currently 9 languages with 2 varieties for Portuguese, for the one spoken in Portugal and for the other one spoken in Brazil. And for the fully automated lines, we are supporting 8 languages. FlixTrain is still a small service, so we are offering support only in German and in Swedish, but independently of the service and independently of the location of the customer, he can always reach us in English. So on top of the local languages, we have also for each year a global English support line. And yeah, going to the next slide, what is the connection between conversational artificial intelligence and our telephony services? Obviously, our long-term goal is to automate our telephony services as much as possible. So currently, we migrated to a new service, to a new cloud platform for contact center, to Twilio, and also with the whole hiatus, for calling it somehow, of the corona crisis, we have actually time to rethink all of our strategy of how we are going to move from our current model in which the telephonic services are supported by human agents still, almost in the totality, to another model of automation in which basically only those cases that cannot be handled by the system will be forwarded to the human agents. And the 3 principles, the 3 main pillars of this new strategy is basically the content that we are sharing with you today. So our new human-in-the-loop approach, the agile design process to enable us to properly participate between each other, and some best practices to conversational UX. And now I'm happy to hand it over to Paulo to the human-in-the-loop part.
Carmen, can you hear me?
Thank you, Carmen. So yes, as Carmen was saying, so the goal is, of course, to automate as much as possible, but it cannot simply be shoved like that towards automation. So we need to sensibly scale up, and part of doing so is keeping a human in the loop. So in a nutshell, we don't want to see our customers, our callers.
Can we quickly can you hear us? Sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry. Just sorry to break it, because the slides are not in the optimal way. So we just, like, our technician just said, like, he wants to restart the whole slide, because then we can see it. We can see it better. So you can just wait for maybe like a few minutes. I will tell you when we continue, just because the slides right now are very small. And then as soon as it's fixed, you can continue with the talk. Sorry about that.
No worries.
You can continue.
I'm sorry. Did you say something to us?
Yes. I think it's all fine now, and you can continue with the presentation.
All right. Yes, we don't see our callers, our customers, as mere consumers of information. Therefore, it's not a valid approach to just give them automations that would simply recognize some intent based on some queries they would ask, and then give them static information. I mean, for some use cases, like how much luggage can I carry on the bus? Of course, this sort of approach might work, but for some other use cases, it actually could really take in the input of the users. And therefore, we use this human in the loop approach. So the contrast is between a so-called wizardless data collection approach, which is simply we would define use cases that are supported in the system, intents that are recognized, and then define static answers to that. And that assumes that the product that we're offering, as in the main product, like the bus transportation, the train transportation, are immutable. They're not, especially in Corona times. And that would also assume that our clientele has also static needs, which is also a false assumption. So in order to fix that, we have a so-called Wizard of Oz data collection approach. So in a nutshell, real customer service agents are very much involved even in the automation cases, and they will have access to those, and they will see, for instance, conversational transcripts of those, and they will tag them so that we keep on learning from the real usage of the system and from the real agents who are in touch with the customers every day. And then we can put this into system dialogue creation and further improve the system based on this input. So it's about being human-centric, so not having humans replaced by robots, but rather having humans having a broader reach through this automation. Then for the second pillar, Carmen, could you please let us know a little bit about the agile design process?
Yes, sure. So the agile design process is a framework of collaboration among both the technical and non-technical members of our team. But beside that is also a way of keeping our attention basically in developing first solutions that they are very narrow in scope and also they have very lower level of complexity. So we can learn from them. So we can lay a foundation for the future iteration by collecting and analyzing data and building knowledge and basically doing whatever escalation of the system regarding capabilities on the base of the information that we are collecting. And this framework has 8 steps that basically fit into the classical ones of the UX design cycle and is adapted from the work on
Is it just me, or is she frozen?
Not hear her anymore.
You cannot hear her, right?
No.
Okay. I guess I'll take it over then for the time being until she can rejoin. So it's based on the work of Yilkes and has 8 steps. So the very first one is, of course, the discovery one, so we would understand the needs and expectations of the callers. And we try to do that qualitatively and quantitatively. So, for example, by asking real passengers, real customers, and also by looking at quantitative data from older versions of our support. Then we'll define the scope of the service, what we can and we cannot offer concretely as use cases, and select technological tools, identifying data sets that we can use in order to bring that as a product. And then having finally the first designs. So the first versions of the algorithms, technical design and concept, and other definitions such as the wording that we're going to use, the kind of personality that we want to imprint on our conversational UI and such. Next up, we would build a prototype. So instead of going straight from design to coding, we would do prototypes, for instance, by writing a conversational script and role-playing that conversational script. One colleague plays a robot, the other colleague plays the caller. The colleague playing the robot must stick to the script as it is, no changes, whereas the colleague playing the caller can, of course, add variations and should add variations so that we see if that creates some moments of tension or some awkward moments in the conversation. That allows us to refine our conversational scripts without having to rewrite. Then we'll do usability testing also in terms of exposing this to real customers, maybe in a reduced way, in order to further validate the hypothesis. And then when this is all validated, we'll go for development and implementation and really work then on a production level solution that can be then put in operation. So we actually quite like the approach of canary releases. So first releasing for a small subset of users, such as the subset of the countries we operate, for instance, and then finally scaling up and launching it globally, which is of course when we have the biggest opportunity for causing an impact, but of course highest operational risk as well. So that's why those steps before allow us to reduce the risks for that. And another added benefit of this iterative process is that if, well, for instance, we do usability testing and it turns out that something is not going very well, we can go back to definition, design, prototype, and then redo the usability test without having to commit to going all the way to scaling up to doing so. So this process allows us to go back and forth and validate our hypothesis. And in the case of hypotheses that are not validated, we can simply change what we're implementing. And therefore, we minimize the time that we spend implementing things that are not solving our core problems. So enabling the team to do that is crucial so that you really increase the productivity of the team. And the third pillar is, of course, the employment of best practices for conversational UX. So as humans, we all have an intuitive understanding of what is a good conversation and what isn't. We can spot really easily if a conversation feels somehow awkward. And but we cannot rely on only this intuitive feeling, not when designing the conversations. We need to employ strictly explicit principles to make it really work. But in order to do so, we need to consider that conversational UX is very different from UX on other platforms. So when you're developing a website, when you're developing a mobile app, the user can only give input on the fields and buttons that you have put on that interface, and that is it. Whereas with conversational, be it with voice or with chat, the user can give any type of input, no matter what you're really expecting. Therefore, your interface has to plan well for the happy path, but also on how to recover when you're not in the happy path. So we take a few more steps in order to ensure that we're delivering the right thing for conversation. So the very first part is, of course, doing some research. In our case in particular, we do a lot of voice-based. So we find heuristics to try to find, for instance, we cannot cover 100% of the use cases about anything. We cannot cover 100% of the use cases with automation for luggage allowance or for lost and found or for any of those. So we try to identify a subset that is large enough to have a meaningful impact and yet small enough to keep the implementation feasible. And then we'll research applicability. So for example, let's take the case of lost and found. So let's say that a customer has forgotten something on a bus or a train, and then they want to find the status for the lost and found item. So in terms of a process, it's very straightforward. You only provide the order ID, and then you can actually get that status. You can go on the website and you can put that order ID, you can find it, and we could also provide an interface with voice that users could get that information. But normally with personal belongings, it's a bit tricky. And if the status is, well, we haven't located your luggage yet, then normally the customers want to hear that from a human. ideally from the human doing the search themselves, but they're often not working call center, but they want to hear that from a human. So in terms of feasibility, yes, it's feasible to implement that use case. In terms of applicability, we're not convinced that users would really settle for that response. So that's why applicability comes into place. And then, of course, when we have found something that will have an impact that is feasible to implement and that is applicable, that will actually be used, then we can go for the definition and for the design, and then consider the things for conversational UX that you would normally consider anyway, such as the type of personality you want to imprint on the conversational UI, or the kind of language that you want to use, and so on and so forth. So that was the third and final pillar. So let's just summarize those 3 points. So the very first one that we found that is very helpful is to keep humans in the loop always. So the goal of automation is not to just shove it under an automation carpet, but rather to keep on being helpful to our customers. And we can only do that by having humans in the loop. So that will greatly shorten the feedback cycle, because then you get feedback from people who are internally in the company and who are specialists in that sort of interaction, such as customer service specialists. The second one is take the time to just put your team in a iterative product deployment strategy mindset. So this doesn't have anything to do with design or code. It's purely allowing your team to iterate and go back and forth when validating strategies. This will allow you to employ agile methodologies, whichever flavor of agile you like, Kanban, Scrum, or even others. And it will actually save you a lot of time down the road when your team is not implementing things that will not really be used. And the last one is to keep in mind that you need to use best practices for voice platforms. They're different from other channels, and therefore it is worth taking the time to do this research. So that was it. Thank you very, very much for your time and for having us. Would be happy to take your questions now.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Paulo. Thank you, Carmen. Let me actually kick it off with a short remark. I think it was really great how you emphasized the special value of conversational UX, and that it is really a special interface. And what I also like is that it was coming from you as a a software solution architect, so like background in informatics, because that's what we learned in most of the projects. When we have a good interplay between technology and conversational UX and mutual respect for the 2 disciplines, that's when the greatest experiences happen. And I think we saw it in your presentation that this is really the case for you. So I think that was really, really nice to see. And with this, I would open up the floor for any questions, any remarks on the presentation. Yeah, we have one.
Hi, thanks for the presentation. I was wondering, can you give a concrete example of a voice-related project where you had to go back to the drawing board once you started releasing it to your users?
I can actually come up with one example. So it has to do with one particular use case that we support in the call center, which has to do with bus stop addresses. So we used to have, in the beginning, support to 2 different use cases. One of them would list all the bus stations or train stations that we operate in a city. So you could say like, tell me the stations you have in Berlin. And then it would list all of them. It's over a dozen. And the other one was more specific. You wanted the address of one station. So let's say you're departing from the station in Berlin Wannsee, and therefore you need the address for that one. And we had the issue that when users were trying to trigger one, they would trigger the other. So more often than not, they wanted the address for a particular station. They didn't want to know the list of all stations. and therefore, but they still would trigger the other use case because they're fairly similar. So what we did was we narrowed down the scope. We consolidated those two into one single use case, and then it would try to narrow down based on other cues from your profile. So if you identify that you're calling from a phone number associated with a ticket, and that ticket has a departure from Berlin Alexanderplatz, if you just ask for bus stop information for Berlin, it would proactively give you Alexanderplatz information, because that's the one that should be more relevant to you. So in a way, if we could narrow it down, we would. And by also consolidating the use cases like that, it allowed fewer false positives, which has overall improved the success rate of that use case. I hope that answers the question, but please let me know if it doesn't.
We had the big nod, so thank you very much. Any other questions? If not, then again, thank you very much. Great talk, and we are of course sad that you cannot be here with us, but we hope to see you soon in the future, and have a great day.
Thank you very much. Hopefully next year we can do it all in person. Thank you very much for having us, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.